Hey, Living Church in Mansfield. I'm here with my friend, Dr. Darin Charles. He's my personal doctor and my family's doctor. He owns Hometown Health here in Mansfield and is a direct primary care provider and a family physician for not only me, but the staff of Living Church. And him and I were talking just the other day about everything that's kind of going on in our community. And he had some great answers for me to kind of settle my heart and help me understand what's going on. And I said, Doc, would you just come in and kind of answer some questions about what's happening? And so first, tell us about the virus. What's going on? What are some of the symptoms? What's happening with all that?
Sure. So viruses are common. This is a time of year where we see lots of viruses, and this new coronavirus, COVID-19, this is a novel virus. It is a type of virus from the coronavirus family. Coronaviruses are common. They've been around for a long time. We deal with them on a regular basis, but this new virus is particularly dangerous because our bodies haven't been exposed to this particular strain. It can cause more severe symptoms than the typical viruses that we come in contact with on a yearly basis. So the novelty, the newness of this virus is really the concern.
Right. And so what are some of the symptoms of people that have caught this?
Sure. So the scary part about this virus is the symptoms can be dramatically different. So they can be very mild to even really no symptoms for some people. It can look a lot like allergies or the common cold in the beginning. And it can get really severe. So things like difficulty breathing that needs hospitalization and support with your breathing. So anywhere on that full spectrum from no to minimal symptoms to very severe symptoms can be with this. But you can have the virus, you can be contagious with really minimal to no symptoms. So I think that's what most people need to know is what you think may be allergies or may just be a little cold could potentially be this new coronavirus.
Which I think kind of leads into my second question of why such aggressive measures? Why have we taken such immediate action to the point that we're not allowed to gather, that we're not going to restaurants and we're not going into big groups of people?
Yeah, so because of the newness of this virus, it is particularly dangerous. That's the big piece. We think that it's more dangerous for people who get it than, say, the flu, which is a very dangerous infection we deal with on a yearly basis. Plus the so-called latency period, the time between when you get infected and you start potentially spreading that virus to other people to when you start having symptoms is longer. And so with the flu, you usually start getting symptomatic pretty quickly and you know, I better keep myself away.
Yeah.
With this virus, you can have minimal to no symptoms and be spreading it around. And so we can't just say only sick people need to stay home. We really need to keep everybody apart.
Yeah.
Keep that distance that we've been talking about so that we can keep the spread to a minimum and help protect those that are the most vulnerable.
Right.
And even young, healthy people need to help prevent the spread of this virus. That's another really key piece is that we know that the real severe symptoms and deaths from coronavirus tend to be in people who are older, 60 and older, or other risk factors like diabetes or underlying heart problems or lung problems. But by helping prevent the spread through keeping younger, healthier people from getting the virus, we can help protect those that are the most vulnerable.
Right, so even though if I got the virus, I would live through it and be okay because I'm relatively healthy, that doesn't mean that I couldn't pass it on to somebody who would be affected in a greater way.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So totally unknowingly and with no intention of getting anyone sick or causing harm, you could be spreading the virus to people, and through that chain, some of the most vulnerable people could get sick.
Now, I've seen on social media, a couple other places, the curve, where there's like this high peak, and then there's the other curve where it's spread out. Would you explain that a little bit?
Right, so this kind of flattening the curve idea is what you're talking about. And so the idea is that in our country and even in our local community, we have a limited number of hospital beds, ICU beds, oxygen supplies, ventilator units, the kind of things that the sickest people with coronavirus might need. And if everyone gets sick at once, or a high percentage of people get sick at once, we simply can't care for the sickest of those folks. And so by slowing this down, by keeping our distance, what we're able to do is have plenty of equipment available for the folks who are the sickest. So ultimately, the same number of people might get sick from this virus. That's very possible. But we'll have the really important support, ventilator equipment, those kind of things that would be necessary for our highest risk patients.
Right. No, I think that's really important for all of us to understand that it's not only for us and for today, but for other people and for tomorrow, that we're kind of being intentional.
Absolutely.
About everything that happened. Let me ask you another question. Has anyone tested positive locally?
So there's, the numbers change every day. The most recent numbers that I've seen today are around 20 cases in Dallas County,
Okay.
And 6 cases in Tarrant County. To the best of my knowledge, one of those was in Arlington, and one of those now has been in Mansfield
Wow.
as well. So yes, this is coming close to home,
Yeah.
and we're going to start seeing, I believe, quite an increase in the number of positive cases, and it's going to be a lot closer to us than maybe we've seen here recently. It started on the coast, obviously, a lot of things in Washington and California, but it's certainly moving this direction. We're going to see a lot more cases a lot closer to home soon.
Now, I'd read something about how the common flu has a percentage that people die if they get the flu.
Correct.
And so talk to us about the differences of, the flu kills people every year who are already susceptible or have some illness. And so what's the difference between this and a mortality rate than the flu?
The newness of this virus makes that really difficult to calculate. But it seems to be significantly higher. So the mortality rate with this virus seems to be significantly higher than with the seasonal flu. So the seasonal flu is deadly, and it kills tens of thousands of people in our country every year. But some of the estimates, if not controlled well, would put the potential the potential deaths from this virus at significantly higher than that. Probably, again, different estimates, but
those
maybe
are small percentage points overall. Like if the flu is a 1%
that's right,
kill rate,
so
that this would be like a 2%.
That's right. So
which is a big increase,
that's
thinking
exactly
the numbers
right. So
of
the flu is a less than 1% mortality rate, and this seems to be maybe somewhere as high as 2 or 3%.
Okay.
In Italy right now, they're calculating it out to be about 6 or 7%.
Okay.
But I don't think those are going to be the same numbers that we see in our country.
because our healthcare system's set up differently, and we have
Our population is different. Our
Right.
population density is different. Our healthcare system is different.
So just because you get coronavirus, it doesn't mean that you die.
No, I mean,
This is not a zombie apocalyptic
No.
movie. You don't start bleeding from your eyeballs.
No,
It's
no,
not
the-
like all the scary movies that we've seen.
Correct. The
It's a
good
little
news
different.
is that 80% of people who get coronavirus, by the best of our calculations, have fairly mild disease.
Okay.
It's just that the newness of this could again overwhelm our system with pretty sick people pretty
Right.
fast, and we're not able to take care of those people.
How does someone know if they need to get tested?
So testing is still fairly tough at this point. There's a limited number of tests available. Testing is being done locally. The health department does tests, but only if you have specific contacts with known cases. A lot of doctors' offices and hospitals do have tests available, commercial test kits available. Primarily if you've had somewhat of a high-risk exposure and somewhat of moderate to severe symptoms. Those are the people who are getting tested right now. So,
Okay.
if you live in a town where people have it but no known exposure directly, and you're having pretty mild symptoms, those are probably not people we're testing right now.
Okay.
But people who've been in range of a known positive case or who are having severe symptoms, those are the people we're going to be testing right now. I think over the coming days, as testing becomes more available, we're going to be testing a lot more people. So,
Right.
so people with mild symptoms and minimal contact are going to be tested before long. And that's when we'll be able to start calculating out some of the numbers you were talking about more accurately.
Yeah.
When we get a real understanding of how many people actually have this disease, we'll be able to tell what the mortality rate and those kind of things may actually be.
Yeah, so the medical community is really spooling up to prepare themselves so that if you think you need to get tested, then you guys
right.
have the capacity
That's
to do
right.
that.
So some of the limitations, in order to test a patient safely, I have to have, protective gear for myself. And so some of the limitations are on the testing gear and supplies that you need and the testing kits themselves.
Right. What is the medical community suggesting that we do to protect ourselves and our loved ones? I know that we're not supposed to gather in big groups.
Right.
What are some other things?
So, we always start with the basics. You've been hearing a lot more about hand washing
Right.
and those kind of things. So wash the hands, hand sanitizer when you need to, sanitizing hard surfaces and keeping those clean. Although, early reports don't show that this spreads through touching surfaces quite as much as some other viruses may.
Okay.
Keep your hands away from your face. That's a common one that we talk about. And then again, right now it's this social distancing and really almost moving closer to really a lockdown state, perhaps where we're really limiting where people get together to try to prevent any spread as much as possible. And so those are the main things, and particularly if you're at high risk. So I mentioned earlier, patients over 60, folks with diabetes, heart disease, underlying lung problems. Those seem to be the people at the highest risk for complications from this.
Okay. But we can still go out and get groceries and still take the precautions. Maybe we shouldn't go to the movies, but if we need to go to the grocery store, we just go to the grocery store, but be aware. We're not hugging and high-fiving everybody.
Sure.
But
I think that's true. I mean, I think where we are right now is you still have life to live. You still have to do the things that you have to do. I think you cut out any non-essential parts of what you do, but you really try to stick with the things that you need to do, and you do it smart. So, just send one person to the grocery store. You don't need to go as a family to the grocery store.
That's good.
And don't send, if you have an older parent or somebody, maybe you can do their shopping for them so that they don't have to get out and get involved. So send a healthy adult to the grocery store with a list of what to do, minimize your time there, clean the shopping carts, hand sanitize, do all those things that you would normally do. But if you need to go to the pharmacy, you need to go to the grocery store, I think that it's, as safe as you can still do those things.
I know this is a big question, and this is the last one. How long do you think this will last?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and we really don't know. I think that this kind of isolation, lockdown, social distancing is probably going to be several more weeks. I think the best estimates are probably 2 to 8 weeks of really keeping people away from each other to try to keep from spreading this.
And that's so we can collect data. It's kind of like over the next 2 to 8 weeks, we're going to see
what's working,
what's actually happening.
Yeah, and I think we may find. We may find that we need to be stricter, right?
Yeah.
So what people feel like right now is really restrictive of their lives, we may find isn't sufficient for what we really need to do. I think the number of positive cases is going to go up significantly, especially as
we test more people.
As we start testing more people, the number of positive tests is going to go up significantly, and I think that may, we may as a society respond by even tightening the restrictions down. So I think we're probably in for a spell of even tighter restrictions, and then over the next several weeks, that's sort of lessening. I think coronavirus is going to be something we're talking about and aware of and part of our lives for the next several months, probably well into the summer would be the best guess at this time. We're hoping that as the Texas summer starts to heat up and the humidity levels start to rise, we'll finally have, that'll be a positive thing for once, and may have an effect on how this virus spreads and the effect that it may have on folks. But I think the lockdown piece is probably a few weeks. The disease process itself and how it affects our communities is probably a few months.
Okay. Well, man, thank you, Dr. Darin, for being here and answering some questions that not only I've had, but I'm sure the majority of citizens here in Mansfield, and I know definitely Living Church, have. If you have any questions or would like to connect with Dr. Darin, we'll put his link to Hometown Health in the description below for you to click on that and see what's going on there. And we're going to continue to give updates.
Yeah.
So him and I are in conversation. If anything shifts or changes, as things get better or as things start to look a little bit heavier, we're going to keep informing everybody on what's going on, especially locally here. And we've talked a lot about the physical health, but I think we also have to be aware of what our health looks like in our mind and in our emotions. And so in this season, with all of the noise and all of the chaos and really all of the fear that's kind of out in the system, be intentional to put in some positive things too. It's not any good for us to be sitting at home worried and stressed and anxious and overwhelmed. I don't know, but Doc would probably tell us that's not good for your health either.
Absolutely.
And so let's continue to put in some truth. Stay watching what's going on here at Living Church. We've got a lot of content that we're producing. We're still having our Sunday services all via online, and I promise that we're going to share with you the love and the truth that God has for us. Can I tell you, we're not alone. God hasn't forgotten us. He hasn't fallen off the throne in heaven, and so we're going to make it through this and be okay. We love you guys. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dr. Darin, for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.